Yo, check out, it's your boy DJL7. Today we have a very, very special episode. I'm actually looking forward to this one quite a bit. I'm going to make this part of my online interview series, and then we're going to go off with some other questions. As you know, the online interview series is a series of, questions that are the same for all the activists to really try to, compare. You can watch the whole series and compare their answers against each other. But, we'll be taking some small little detours along the way. So the first one is going to be, what got you into activism?
That's a great question. I guess I actually probably goes back to my parents. Really, they were really involved back when they were younger because, my mom is from Poland and she's Jewish and her family fled the Holocaust, and my father is Chinese. He's from Boston. I mean, people always trip up when when I say this, but like they're always like, oh, I'm half white and half Asian, and they're always like, oh, so your mom's Asian? I'm like, no, my dad's Asian. I'm like, oh, where in China is he from? I was like, he's from Boston. Well, my mom's from Poland. She's an immigrant. But anyway, so they both met up in like Massachusetts, and at the time, it was not very common for there to be what would you say? I guess interracial couples. And so they were both really involved in civil rights and all that stuff. And so that kind of just became a really important part of our household. So I think, I was sort of raised to really care about these sorts of things and understand that the things that society does and the morals it has and what the government's role in society is really important and actually does affect people's lives. Like if my parents had met maybe 20 years earlier, it would have been illegal for them to get married and all this stuff because miscegenation laws were in place. So basically, like interracial couples couldn't get married until the 50s. So pretty, pretty proximate stuff. But I guess the really, really, real reason that I ended up with Barack Obama in 2008, and I was like, oh, I remember I was doing like sort of a startup sort of thing where I was like going around and interviewing street performers in New York. And then my mom, this was right after college, and my mom was like, hey, are you going to like do anything? And I was like, oh, I guess. And she's like, well, you like politics, right? I was like, kinda. She was like, well, my friend Jen knows Barack Obama from law school, which sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely insane that one of my mom's friends would have met Barack Obama personally. But remember, he was just a random senator at the time. He was like a state senator who had just become senator. But she was like, they've got an office here in New York. Why don't you go volunteer? And I was like, fine, I guess I will. And that's really how I got involved. I went and I volunteered in the Obama campaign office for like a day. And then they were just like the nicest people. They were legitimately like really nice people, and they were like, can you come back? And I was like, okay, sure. And then everybody, and this is, I remember when the Obama campaign ended, the state director turned to everybody and said, look to your left and look to your right, because you're never going to have another campaign like this. And it's true so far. Like all the people on the Obama campaign were just like really good people. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people didn't expect him to win. So it wasn't the folks who were drawn to power who were in leadership. There was folks who really believed and were committed to this idea that he had of like moving beyond the Bush years, which ultimately didn't really pan out that way. But that's how I sort of got involved. And then the next important component, which then sort of sets up the rest of my activist sort of,
development.
Life. Development is my friend on the Obama campaign who became one of my best friends. We're still great friends. He came after the campaign and he was like, hey, I'm president of this thing called Manhattan Young Democrats, which I'd never heard of. And I was like, okay, fine. And he was like, I want you to come and be my vice president. And I was like, what?
Who was this, by the way?
What's that?
What was the name?
The organization or my buddy?
Your buddy.
Al Benninghoff.
Okay.
Al Benninghoff comes to me and he's like, I'm president of Manhattan Young Democrats. I'd like you to be my vice president. And I'm like, why? I've never even heard of this organization. I was just on a national campaign for this guy who became president. And like, I could do all these other things. Why should I join your little club that I've never heard of? And he was like, don't you want to keep the change that Obama promised going. And I'll never forget this conversation because it like changed the entire trajectory of my life. I said, if you can tell me one thing that we're going to do in the 1 year that I'm your vice president, I'll join your silly little club. And he told me about the county committee, which I imagine we're going to get into, but he told me about the county committee and how the county committee is the governing structure of the Democratic Party and how almost all of the seats in Manhattan were vacant, and we could run a new generation of young people to put them in party leadership and change the dynamics of our political structure. And I've sort of been doing that sort of stuff ever since, which is how I met you. And that's the short story. That's a short version.
Okay. So the thing is, usually when I ask a question, I do appreciate your answer, right there in terms of how you started as an activist.
Yeah.
I think that was a good answer, was a unique answer. But usually, one thing that I'm also looking for is to see like what causes brought you to the surface. So you talked about like the interracial relationships. I know like being sometimes, I know it's not the greatest term to say half Asian or whatever, right? Or mixed, right? Sometimes that can be more isolating than be fully Asian, like, the Asian community, they're kind of looking at you and not really accepting you. The whites not really accepting you. You kind of find yourself in this no man's land.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry for that experience. But did you get to be around Asian communities, how did that all, and is this really a fundamental part of your activism? It sounds like it kind of like you were looking for something to do and this opportunity kind of hit you, right? So that is definitely part of your story, but was there something that really drives you to be more politically versus doing, you could do anything, right? Why not do the typical stuff? What drove you? Maybe it was your background family wise. What issue captured you? Was it the racial thing?
I guess it is the racial thing, and then other sort of like intersectional issues. So I care a lot about equity and equality, and that people have opportunity and that they be taken care of and have good lives, basically. And I feel very, very strongly that the circumstances into which you are born should not impact your ability to succeed or have a good life or, be happy and healthy. So race is one of those things. So certainly like I'm half Asian, I'm half Jewish. There's been a lot of discrimination against both of those groups in this country and in other countries. And, I feel very strongly that like, it shouldn't matter what ethnicity you are or the family to which you're born. And it's beyond just race. There's also, economic circumstances. There's gender and sex and all of these things. I really, really am animated by the idea that like people are equal. And as a result, everybody should get a fair shot. And discrimination is probably like the worst possible thing in the world. It's the greatest evil, or it's one of the greatest evils. And I'm dedicated to fighting that pretty much in all of its forms and coming up with the policies that will allow us to overcome them. Some of it's about education. Some of it is about, laws. Some of it is about economic and housing justice, those sorts of things, environmental justice. These are all really important aspects of that fight. I would say that probably one of the things that I bring to the table somewhat uniquely is my knowledge of policy and like how policy and government actions have shaped this dynamic. And that's one of the reasons that, it's like my niche in the activist community, I guess you'd say.
Okay. Some people have different ideologies. Like, like there's a socialism thing is popular now. Some people say they want to be like, there's all whatever, right? Do you have a certain political ideology that you follow?
I think more than anything, I am a super hardcore small d Democrat. Like I really believe in democracy. And to the extent that the economic system is supportive or detrimental to a democratic process where, again, everybody's equal and everybody's got a say and there's limited government telling people how to live their lives so that, like the idea that the government would come in and tell women what to do with their bodies or tell people that, yeah, you can't love this other person, you can't be married to them. Like these are things that really I find absolutely ridiculous. Right. So the idea of like, to the extent that people have, the capacity to be who they want to be and do the things they want to do without too much restriction, and have a say in their own governance, that's my political philosophy. Like, I am a Democrat. I believe in democracy. I believe that the government derives its power from the consent of the governed. I believe that things that are overly restrictive or oppressive deprive people of fundamental rights, that reduce their capacity to participate in government and do the governance for themselves. I think that education as a result is super, super critical. Like, all of these things are tied together. But if I had to say one thing, like, I'm a Democrat, I'm trying to optimize democracy. And to the extent that socialism or capitalism or any of these other isms support that, like, I'm for it. Like, I'm supportive of,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I did look you up. I did a little bit of research on you. I always do like to, look up like what I'm getting into.
See,
And I don't agree on all your positions, but I do agree with most of them. I do actually in October, I think 2 months before this interview, I don't think you saw it, but I actually posted into the public housing group about information about you, and I said, look, this guy's, I don't say I feel like a better version of myself. That was before we even set up this interview or anything, right? I saw you last week, I think.
yeah.
So yeah, so back in October, 2 months ago, I actually posted. I've been following your work for some time. I'm a fan. So I don't take this. I'm not pushing back, trying to call it. But the thing is that when you talk about democracy, right? How does democracy protect minorities, right? You said like this stuff about you want the people to do this. You want, right? You think there's certain right, progressive ideas that you have. But what if the majority of people decide the other way? Like that's democracy. Like I don't really see how those things jive together. So maybe
That's
you're
a
like a
great question.
libertarian. Yeah. What is this? Yeah. So explain it to me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, so that's a fantastic question. I think, it comes up a lot when people are talking about, the how democracies have fallen or disenfranchised folks. Like, for example, we had Jim Crow in the South under a quote democracy, right? There's a lot of bad things that happen in democracies.
Look at right now. Look at right. This is
Look
still
at
going
right
on
now,
right now.
exactly.
Like right now. Like this Thanksgiving, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's be honest, right? Yeah, the people that pick the food, right? Yeah, like in the fields, they're migrant workers. They're
yeah,
in the packaging process for the ones who are doing all the Thanksgiving, and then at the same Thanksgiving this year in New York City, not last year, we're arresting them. We're taking away their bikes. You know what I mean? Where
yes.
I'm not saying that there are like valid concerns about them just being thrown on us, but there's also right, they're not garbage. They could be productive. So there's
But what I
anyways,
guess
I got my yeah. Oh, I'm
yeah, I
sorry.
mean, what I'd say is that there are a few things that are really important in a democracy, and I'm not a majoritarian. So I don't just believe that the majority should have its way. Democracy doesn't necessarily mean that 50% plus one of the population controls everything. For example, even in the United States, we have, well, one, we have a representative democracy. So it's not, for the most part, direct people voting, the people voting directly on policies. The second thing is the United States is classified as a democracy, but in the Senate or the House, for example, there are votes that require a 2/3 majority. So it's not just a majoritarian system. And then I think maybe most importantly, we have our civil rights and our constitutional rights. And these are things that restrict the government. And no matter how many people want a certain thing to happen, if it's unconstitutional, it's simply not allowed. You cannot technically, vote to take away somebody else's right to vote. Yeah. Like, everybody is endowed by their creator or what have you with the inalienable right to vote. Now, I will certainly, admit that over time, who is considered a full person has changed for the better. Who has had the vote has had to be expanded. But the fact that I believe in democracy doesn't mean that I'm a majoritarian, and in fact, I'm not a majoritarian. I think that minorities and all people have really, really important rights that should not be abridged under any circumstances. One of those is the right to vote, and one of them is the right to organize. And the power of minorities to organize within their communities and make their voices heard is one of the ways that we've actually expanded the rights and the opportunities for ethnic minorities here in the United States, or any sort of minority. You can have economic minorities. You can have gender minorities, right? People like LGBTQ communities, right? They had to organize and fight, and they could vote and do all of these things that allowed them to secure additional opportunities here in the United States. And that's only possible because it's a democracy.
Yeah, I do have a quick question on that. Vivek Ramaswamy, as you know, is running for president, another Asian American, right? I'm watching all these cats. I think he has an idea to raise the voting age, right? what do you, maybe some people like I personally would even lower the voting age personally, and maybe that's controversial. I'll just be honest with me, right? But do you have a particular like what's your view on voting age and the ability, like do you have an opinion on that? I don't know, maybe 18 you like it, I don't know.
I think 18's all right. I mean, the voting age was established, the current voting age was established, in the 60s, when they were sending all of these 18-year-olds to Vietnam to die. And the argument was, if you're old enough to die for your country, you're old enough to vote, which I think, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the original argument for the American democracy was no taxation without representation. Taxing is one thing. You send somebody off to die. I think they should have some representation. So, I think that if you're going to raise the voting age, then you better raise the conscription age. And, to the extent that that diminishes the United States' capacity to wage wanton war, that's probably a good thing. Wars of self-defense, I think people will sign up. Great, whatever. But, if he wants to raise the voting age attendant to the conscription age, that's fine. But otherwise, I mean, it's not fine. I do think that 18 is a fine age to be voting. I would argue that you probably could lower the voting age and things would still be absolutely fine. They'd be
okay. That's a side issue. So I just want to take that little dip there. Okay, so back to the regular. Well, I have other things I want to ask, but let's keep focusing on the. Sorry, let me get back to the regular online activism interview. There will be some questions at the end that are my own personal ones. Actually, got a bunch, but okay. So the next one is, some people have a just to surmise your political ideology, I would say you're just a traditional Americanist, a constitutionalist. America pretty much got it right. You're down with the House of Representatives.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
no. Okay. Are you socialist? What are you? Okay.
It's not that America got it right. It's that I believe in democracy. Now, American democracy is flawed, incredibly flawed.
Okay.
There are things that we've done to improve American democracy over time, which are good. And I think one of the great things about the United States is we keep getting better. There are definitely some things that we're going to run into that are serious problems, like the Electoral College, that will be extremely difficult to fix because of the way the Constitution is structured. But for the most part, the United States has been on a progressive, path of expanding voting access, expanding opportunities to more and more people. And this is good. Whether the United States got it right is, I think, a different question. There's other really great forms of government, democratic government, like parliamentarian systems, representative, proportional legislative systems. These are really good ways of doing democracies and doing government. But for the most part, but I'm pro-democracy for sure. And the United States, I'd rather live here than in some authoritarian dictatorial regime.
Okay, that's cool. All right, so let's go on to some people have someone that influences their thought or philosophy, right? Their political ideology, whatever. Maybe it was for previous activists. Maybe it was a certain politician who got certain policy changes made. Who's influential to your activism and thought?
This is a really good question. I would say first and foremost, my mother. My mom is, well, she's passed now. But she was incredibly influential in my life and on the things that I believe. She was a hardcore feminist. She broke a lot of boundaries. She was recruited by Proskauer Rose, which is one of the country's largest law firms, to found their intellectual property division. And when she realized that they wouldn't make her a partner, she was a woman, which was explicit. I could tell you, but it's explicit. They weren't making her a partner because she was a woman. She left and just founded her own firm. She was a badass. And I got a lot of the beliefs that you got to stand up for what you think is right from her. A lot of the, intellectual tradition of feminism and equality and, civil rights and all that, I get, from long conversations with her. In addition to that, though, I guess there are some folks that I think are, have been impactful and inspiring to me. I do think that Barack Obama, I told you I got involved in politics because of Barack Obama in 2008. The hope, the change, this guy is mixed. He's half black, he's half white. I'm a mixed guy. I'm like, oh, hey, somebody who's not going to be, just a a white guy president. And look, some of the white guy presidents were fine, but it was an opportunity to get behind somebody who was, sort of breaking the mold and was able at a time when the country was quite divided to really bring a unifying essence, which I thought was really important. Now, I'll admit that after he won, the polarization in the United States got worse, unfortunately. But at the time, this was the early 2000s. Everybody sort of believed and thought that we'd go back to a country where everybody sort of got along after the Bush era, potentially, and the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Really, the Iraq War was the thing, but it didn't end up happening. But that was impactful. It is the reason I got involved. It is the reason I ended up getting involved locally, and going from somebody who cared about civil rights and cared about politics and the idea of government to being somebody who was active in it.
Okay, that's good to know. All right. So out of the things that you've in the activist world, there's different levels, different things that people have achieved, right? Yeah. And maybe it's something you're most proud of achieving, or maybe there's a bunch of things, a series of things, right? Yeah. But this really helps to really bring into perspective for my viewers, right? Because they've been watching, I think I have 94 interviews with different activists. They're going to want to know, right? Yeah. So what are you most proud of achieving as an activist?
I guess, I don't want to
Could be anything.
I feel like I both don't want to brag, and also it
you don't have to. You could just be from the heart, man. This is going to be watched by other activists, right? Yeah, we will have a time to talk about your other things, and you can go into it from both directions.
I guess what I'll just say is, when I look back on it, I really do feel like I've had a tangible impact on the politics of New York City.
I'm impressed. Once again, I've spoken to more activists probably than. I have 94, and that's just the past 2 years. I've been an activist for 25 years. I've met many activists, and you yourself are someone who I am watching as significant. By the way, other people like Dion Powell probably shouted you out.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for him. I don't know. I know we're running in some different circles, but I
know Dion.
I do deeply respect your work. So, just so my viewers know, this is a special one for me. So go ahead.
That. I've definitely spent many, many years working to reform politics. I'm anti-corruption. I'm anti-machine. All of these things. And I guess the thing that I look back on, and I'm like, I'm really glad I did that. I think it was really meaningful. Is I was involved in politics and local party politics and reform for many, many years when it was not cool, and I don't know if it was ever cool, but not interesting to anybody, right? Just running people for county committee, all of that sort of stuff. And then when Donald Trump got elected, I was still doing it, and it became a thing that people took notice of. And I was there to really help nurture the reform and progressive communities that were emerging in Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx and Manhattan. And there are all of these local leadership positions that are elected, that have power, but they're not part of the government. They're part of the political party structure. They're unpaid. It's all volunteer, but it is important to who ends up being in positions of authority like Congress, state Senate, governor. And I have helped thousands of people run for county committee. Dozens of them have become district leaders or presidents of local Democratic Party clubs, which are official outlets of the Democratic Party in your neighborhoods here in New York City. And so when I look around, the actual political landscape of New York City has been in part shaped by folks that I supported in their education towards understanding and engaging with party politics and local civics and all of these things. I think that's got to be it.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. So that's some important work. Yeah. And I appreciate that. I know you've done a lot more than that, right? Yeah. We're actually going to get talking about your work with data and stuff like that. And I have more pointed questions at the end, really, my own personal curiosity, right? But yeah, I want to keep this in the format for my other viewers, right? Once again, 94, we asked them the same questions in a row, so as much as we can, right? So
Yeah.
That's good to learn about. Now that we know who you are, now we're
Yeah.
going to start asking about. There are other people who are activists who are learning to be activists who may be dealing with their own issues, right? Yeah. What do you think is the most effective thing that activists can do?
The most effective things that they can do is, well, what do you mean by that?
It's up to, right. Once again, you have your own actions, you have your own style, right? Yeah. But just, once again, there's other people who are watching this.
Yeah.
Like there's a lady right now who I'm working with, Kay Marie Presley. She's actually dealing with a not-for-profit industrial complex. She has actually videotaped herself getting beat up. The lady says that the people break into home with baseball bats. The family's scattered all throughout the boroughs.
Wow.
One of the kids is sleeping at his workplace. It's really messed up.
Yeah.
She's really trying to grapple with the system and figure out the activists. Right, she's running. You know how the people who are new to this is. They run to the politicians.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're going through all these motions now, like learning the game right now. So
Yeah.
they'll be probably the ones I speak to the most, because my activism really speaks to the people that need help and the people that aren't getting help. That's who I focus on the most. Right.
Yeah.
But just once again, people like yourself like that I reach out to will also be watching this series, maybe. So just that's who you're speaking to. Regular people won't watch this, right? So what do you think the most effective things activists can do?
I guess there are two things that I think activists that really move the needle. The first is do the things that you really care about. There are enough things in this world that need being done that you can pick the one that you're motivated to do. And if you do the thing that you care about, then it won't be work. You know what they say, if you if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. It goes doubly for volunteer efforts. If you care about what you're doing, then it's a pleasure and you will make headway because you are dedicated. If you are doing something because you want to be elected someday or you have some ulterior motive, it will be a drag. And I have seen people who are opportunists or do things or take positions because it is popular and they want to be popular because they've got some idea of, I don't know, being elected or having power or being, I don't know what they want, be influential. They're quick to sell out, and it's palpable that they don't really care, and it's not good for them and it's not good for anybody else. So do something you care about. And the other big thing that sort of goes hand in hand is the best thing activists can do is support other people, engage other people, make other people into leaders. And this goes hand in hand with what I was just saying. Like, again, I've spent so much time in politics. In New York, politics are not unique, but they are a particular set of politics where one party controls virtually the entire government here, the Democrats. And when you have a one-party rule situation, then the way that people advance their political careers, so to speak, is generally through nepotism or towing the party line or being ingratiated to people higher up in the political structure. But that doesn't make for good activism, and people like that, again, don't make for good leaders, and they're cynical, and it's not good for the public. And I don't think it's good for them either, honestly. It's not a great way to live your life. It's inauthentic. So the other thing to do is to let go of your own ego and your own need to be elected or whatever it is, and lift other people up. Like, I spent 4 years going around teaching people how they can be on county committee, how they can be a district leader, and watching them I'm really happy. Like, so many of them are like, the president of my local club downtown, my Democratic club, is somebody who came to one of my talks, and now he's president of my local Democratic club. Like, that's great. That's what I strive for, and that's what I believe is the best thing. So it's not that you can't be an elected official. Like, you got an idea. Maybe you're like the best person to do it. Maybe you really are a great leader. You're a great thinker. You're a great organizer or planner, or you're good at policy. That's fantastic stuff. But never forget that a real leader and a real activist is there to activate. What does that even mean? To activate other people, to bring other people into the process so that they can be empowered.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Actually, that's actually, I have an Actives of the Year program, and most of my Actives of the Year to this point are, well, one of my, I want to give a props to Ramona once again for doing that type of work right there. Yeah, I don't know if you know who that is, but I do have Actives of the Year. We're going to talk about another one of them later on. But okay, let's continue on. So sometimes there's these when people are looking for help, right? They actually try to join these activist organizations, things like that.
Hmm.
Sometimes they feel like their issues aren't being addressed, they aren't being heard, right? What do you think are the best practices for organizations to make sure that they're staying true to their vision, but they're also like, responsive to community needs?
Ooh, this is so organizations. I have a lot less to say about how organizations should run themselves because organizations can ultimately do whatever they want. And I've got, yeah, sure, like best practices for if I'm in charge of an organization, things that I do. But what I would really say is if there's an organization that's not meeting your needs, you know, you be an activist, be the person who meets your own needs, organize people, find the people who care about the thing that you care about, and start a group around that. You'd be surprised how few people it takes to get the attention of the local elected official. The other thing that you need to know, and this again, this is why I do the civic trainings, right? Like it takes so little to get an elected official to pay attention. The important part is which elected official really has power over this and what do they care about and how can you use what you have as leverage on them. And this is the core of advocacy. But I could say all sorts of things about how organizations should have committees and they should invite people to participate. They should invite the community to participate in town halls and blah blah blah. Like there's a million organizations and they're not gonna do what I say here. I talk to these people all the time and many of them are friends with mine and they still don't do what I would suggest. If you find that an organization is not fulfilling the needs of the community, then I just said, these are the best things an activist can do. Here's the best thing a person can do: become an activist. Now, I know that's easy to say, like activism takes time. People are busy. They've got jobs, kids, all of these, family, things that are legitimately important. But that's why it's so critical to find people that also care about the same thing. That's what activism really is. That's what organizing is. Finding people who care about the same things so that you can spread the load, because one person can't do everything. It really is something that takes many people, but nothing can stop a committed group of individuals.
Okay. I'd dig in deeper, but I do have like so many other questions to ask just because of your prominence in local politics and just your knowledge and stuff. So the next question is going to be, as you've like made your journey, right, from, young youth, right, to the current state, right, has your perspective changed from your work, right? And it could be a recent breakthrough, or it could be maybe just an overall, for people that are kind of at the beginning of their journey, right? If you would talk to them and say, how has your perspective changed on just the whole overall picture of things? It's super general, okay, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like what are the most important lessons I've learned through all of this, and like what do I do differently now? I think the first most important lesson is what I just said, which is you can't do it alone. And sometimes, actually, I have more problems recognizing this now that I am more established. I think I can do more things by myself. And honestly, like I'm trying to do things, and I'll just run. I run into a wall, right? Because I'm like, oh, I thought I could pull this off, but actually, no, it takes a lot more buy-in from a lot more people. And so, the next thing I would say is just try to, keep your own ego in check. I do a lot of Tai Chi, and there's this really important mantra in Tai Chi, which is invest in loss and, have no ego. And I think, it pertains as much to politics and organizing as it does to Tai Chi or martial arts. It doesn't pay to have an ego. It doesn't pay to try to win everything. Well, not try to win, but if you lose, it's an opportunity to learn, not an opportunity to be mad and like fly off the handle at the people who are, helping you, right? You need to invest in loss. You need to be egoless. And those are probably the most important things. Oh yeah, actually the other most important thing that I've learned, and I learned this kind of early on, it hasn't changed how I've operated, because I learned it kind of early on, but it is maybe the most important thing. It doesn't matter what people high up the political food chain think. What matters is what voters want. And so whoever the constituency is that is, behind an elected official or whatever it is, like, you can change their mind by going directly to the people. So many times folks spend their effort lobbying directly to a quote decision maker or someone quote in charge, and they're not in charge at all. The people who are voting or the people in the community, and it's not always elected officials, right? Like, everybody in any position of power is supposed to be serving other people, and those people are important, and you can go directly to them and make your case. And if you are effective at that, you can make change without having to try and go through this narrow path that culminates in one person's capriciousness or one person's, personal whims.
I'm telling K. Marie Presley right now, I swear to God, just the other day, I'm like, yo, you can go to these politicians and stuff, go to the churches, go to the and tell them about it. And then the politicians are going to listen to you. You know what I mean? Go to the door to door. I got the voter list, right? Yeah. They're going to, when you specifically hit certain Democrats, they're going to get a call. They're going to know you're doing this. You know what I mean? That's going to really make them move. You know what I mean? So, Kay, listen to the experience, right? Kay, I know you want to run to all the politicians. I get it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it has its value as well. But thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's
actually, I will add one more
yeah,
piece to that, which is really important. Understanding the structures. This is how I got involved in county committee and why I stuck with county committee. We ran, what was it? So Manhattan County Committee has like 2,000 seats. In 2009, when we ran our first set of young people for county committee, about half of those seats were empty. So that's 1,000 empty seats. And we got 68 people elected to county committee. Then there's the in-person meeting. So of the 1,000 seats that were filled, only maybe a quarter showed up. So that's like 250, 300 people. 67 votes out of 300 is actually not bad. Like, that's a pretty sizable voting block. The politicians who were involved in the Democratic Party, which is, you can only imagine, a lot of them, important people, they cared a lot about what was going on in this tiny organization that really nobody knows about. And again, it's an example of what we were talking about, but it's also one additional tidbit of information, which is we took the case directly to the voters. We got folks elected, and we got folks elected to this esoteric body that really is not talked about. So not only can you make your case directly to the constituencies that are the underlying power, the people are the underlying power of everything we do in a democracy, which is why I love democracy so much. There are also these structures that really matter. And if you can figure out what those structures are and how to be a part of them, then you'll exponentially increase your capacity to make change.
I love it. I don't know if you know, if you go to dgl7.com, right in the center, right front and center, the left side is going to be the other subway artists. You saw me doing some of our thing, right? Yeah. The middle is about Rep My Block and County Committee. That's the middle. That's the
Rep My Block. Get on it. Sign up.
The right-hand side is like my general activism and talks about all the rest of stuff which I do, which is significant. But in the middle, it's that county. So we are really aligned in that as a central, right? Me too. So we're about to get to I'm about to relax and chop up. We only have 2 more questions left in the online activist interview series phenomenon. Okay. So this is part 1. The next question is, hey, look, you're pretty awesome. How can people follow your work? Do you have social media? You got a website? Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, so I've got a website, benjaminyi.com. My name is Benjamin Yi. Yi is spelled Y-E-E. So
we'll put that in the comments below.
Yep.
And we'll just
awesome. I'm on Twitter, or X as it is now. I haven't left. I'm YBen there. I'm YBen on Blue Sky, although I'm not really active on Blue Sky. On Instagram, I'm Yibrew, because like I'm Jewish and my last name is Z, so Yibrew. And then what else? Facebook.com/BenYiNY, like Ben Yi New York, Ben Yi NY.
Feel free to put that all in the thing, and I'll pin it to the top, right, as the top comment. So
I will do. And then the last thing I'll mention is if you go to my website every so often and sign up for my email list every so often, certainly for elections, but whenever there's really important ballot initiatives or critical things that are not, well, critical, I mean, things that are happening in the Democratic Party, or like this esoteric hidden part of politics, when things are happening there, I'll write, long, in-depth breakdowns of what's going on and the politics that are happening behind the scenes. I have been told that this is the best newsletter in New York City politics. It doesn't come out on a regular basis. It only comes out when I've got the time and the inclination to really break down something important, or when I'm doing endorsements for, key races like governor or what have you, like really going into the track records of, who the governor, who the incumbent is and who the challenger is, and, sort of breaking that down for folks. But if you sign up on my website, you'll, get those emails when they come out.
Cool. Okay. So the last question is going to be, now that people have your information, what are you working for in the future? What do they got to look forward to? They're signing up, right? What's coming up for you?
Well, I'm up for re-election to the Democratic State Committee. I'm currently elected to this body called the Democratic State Committee, which is the governing board of the New York State Democratic Party. There's 3 levels of this: the DNC, which is the Democratic National Committee. People have, generally heard of that one. Then every state has a state party, and so you directly elect your representation to the state party. And then there's county parties, and you also directly elect your representation to the county party. So I'm on county committee. I used to be secretary of the Manhattan County Committee. Now I'm on the Democratic State Committee, and I'm elected by voters to that. In the future, I'm working on some plans for getting folks together to organize for 2024. Really, obviously I'm a Democrat at this, I'm a Democrat. And so I really want to win these elections in 2024, particularly because I think that the alternative these days in the Republican Party is terrifying. They definitely are not pro-democracy. And as I have explained, I am. So whatever I have to do to preserve democracy in the United States, I'm going to put some effort into that. So working on some organizing things there. And then perhaps a run for government office. I've been at this for a long time, and I definitely feel that the folks who are there's maybe more forward-thinking things we need to do in state and local government, but that's still, I've run for office before. That's something that I consider occasionally, depending on who the incumbents are or who's running for which thing.
You ran for public advocate, right?
I did. I ran for public advocate. And, as mentioned, like I'm not in this to run for office. I've been involved, very actively for, 15 years now. I ran for office in 2019. I'm thinking about running for office again. People ask me whether I'm going to go for it. They'd like to see me run again. But my reason for living is not to be elected here. It's to do good things. So I weigh that against what I can do in my current roles.
Just even just being, I'm telling you honestly for myself, from being an activist 25 years in the game, it's good for you to get that experience, to understand what the candidates go through, the process, their thought, pattern, things like that, and to be able to use that information for yourself, right? To understand how that process works, who the consultants are that's going to talk to you in a different way, get into those rooms, playing right, seeing it from that angle. So, some people that are armchair quarterbacks really, I get why they think in the way they do, but really want to be able to see things from all the angles. So
I think that's very astute. I absolutely agree. It's very difficult to understand why politicians do the things they do, unless you've been in those rooms and been a candidate. I will say that, when I started off with Barack Obama, the office that he had in New York was actually a fundraising office. And I saw exactly how money changed hands in a presidential race. And, Barack Obama was doing, he was doing small dollar donations online, and he was the first person to really do this. Howard Dean had done it a little bit, but he didn't really make a strong run for president in the end. Barack Obama was the first president to really raise a significant amount from small donors, but he was, of course, still doing the big donor thing. And I used to do an entire talk just on how lobbying and money is used to gain access to politicians. And people think that like the system is corrupt. I'm not saying it's not, but what I will say is there's a I think, where there's one of those things that's like misunderstood about how money in the United States actually influences policy. And it's the more you understand about how exactly deals are made and the pressures that candidates are under and the decisions they have to make, the better you can understand how to influence them.
I'd love to ask a question right now. Actually, do you know who Christopher Leon Johnson is?
No.
Okay, he's actually the most prolific New York City reporter, I believe, in New York City history.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he probably does 2 or 3 events a day. The guy's a super beast. I can't wait to introduce you to him. We had a series going on for a while.
Okay.
You've almost definitely seen him at like multiple events you've been at, right? Yeah.
That would make sense.
Not sure exactly. What's going right? Who knows? We know there's a lot of stuff going on in this game. This is a power game, right? Yeah, but anyways. So he recently advertised that he's actually given $10,000 in donations to different candidates and causes, right? And this is actually and locally too. So this is like on a national level, like to give out 10,000 locally, that puts you in a very high range, or it puts you into like a party player. Like, so the thing is that I noticed that right. He was giving $10 to this organization, $10 to that organization, 200 to that organization. Now, to me, though, I always saw the big donors at $10,000 plate dinners, right? Yeah, the end of the year, 5,000, 50.
Right.
So I always thought that the ones, right, because I never really played in that donation game because I never had money like that. You know what I mean? So I always felt like if I gave my 10, 20, like it was cool, it was like a nice gesture, but they never really recognized me. I always thought it was a $50,000 dudes. So if someone has money to give, right, how would you donate in a way to really be seen and be heard? Like, is it really about the big money, or is it really like little people? What's the game here, bro? Tell me, man. Yeah.
An excellent question. As I mentioned, I used to do like a 45-minute talk about how to do this. But basically, I guess the highlights are, one, city council has matching funds. So if it's a city issue, even with a small dollar contribution, your money will get matched 8 times to 1. So it is very, very valuable to take your $10 and go to a fundraiser. Now, here's the thing, and this will apply for everything that I say regarding money. Never. I mean, people do it, and maybe that you just want this person to win and it already. But if you want to be influential, do not give your money for nothing. Wait until there is a fundraiser and pay the $10 or whatever it is to get into the fundraiser, and make sure ahead of time that the politician is going to be there. An elected official should be at a candidate should be at every fundraiser that they have. If your candidate's not at your fundraiser, just don't give them the money. Get your money back. Go and make sure when you pay money to be at a fundraiser, you meet the candidate and you have an opportunity to talk to them. You should have an opportunity to go up there and shake their hand, even if it's only for 10 seconds. Tell them the one issue that you care about. All of the anecdotes that politicians say when they get up on a stage and they're like, and then I met this person in this community and they had this sob story and that's why I believe X, right? That's probably somebody they met at a fundraiser or some community event. You need to get access. Now, there's a lot of ways to get access that not all of them revolve around money. But if we're talking about giving money, make sure that when you give that money, you're getting something in return, and that what you're getting in return is access. That is what wealthy people do. They give money in return for access. Now, there's also this idea of like policy influence and what have you, and I could go more into that. But one of the main differences between the $30,000 check to the DNC and the $10 to a city council candidate is how much time and how much access you have to a politician. Politicians are just humans. They are influenced by the people they're around, whether they like it or not. They're also incentivized to do things because they know that they need resources. In a matched city council race, $10 is worth, 90?
90, yeah.
Right? Because it's 8 to 1. If you can get 10 friends to hold out $10 to a politician in a city council race, that person's coming to your house. If you can get more than that, like it's all about a percentage of the rate of the maximum money that's going to be spent. So like a mayoral election in New York is, I forget what the cap is. I think it's like 10 million, maybe something like this. So like and your maximum contribution is 250. So if you can get a bunch of people who can all give 250 together, or you can get a lot of people who can all give $25 together, you could get a mayoral candidate to show up to your thing. It's actually not that hard. Now we just
I
implemented.
like that. I like that. Thanks so much. Keep going. Yeah.
This is how it is. Let me tell you. I mean, I've done it, and I've also been on the receiving end of it. Right? When I ran for public advocate, I was
giving that quality. Oh, I'm so happy. Yo,
yeah.
I need to talk to you more, but I've been reaching out, man. But I reached out to you on Facebook, so I don't know if you checked that, right? Yeah, but I'm happy that I actually I have other questions. It's just the beginning. Okay, cool. All right.
I'm happy to do the whole 45-minute spiel for your viewers as well at some point. But they just introduced matching funds for state elections. So for state elections, that is, that this is an opportunity to do the exact same thing, but for state senate, for state assembly, and the state is even more powerful than the city. And then you've got your federal elections. It's almost impossible to raise enough as an individual to be to get the attention of a presidential candidate or a Senate candidate. But working in groups, you can do it. If you have a union, if you're in a union, or there's a union at your workplace, join your union. Have your union make Chuck Schumer or Kirsten Gillibrand. Those are our federal senators here in New York, or the governor. Make them show up. Right? That's resources that are on a magnitude that those politicians need. Join a local Democratic club. I'm in Downtown Independent Democrats. It's a very active local club. Chuck Schumer comes, and he comes because he just wants to show face. He's like, whatever. It's sort of like my gig. That's how I make people like me. When he shows up, you better believe we're asking him questions about the things we care about. And it's not that, he goes home and he's like, oh gosh, well, these people are so rich, or there's so many of them, I better do this thing. It's all getting tallied up in his head. I did work for a U.S. senator in Washington once, and we tallied every time somebody called and they had an issue about that they cared about, we would take out a tally sheet and just mark it and just be like, here's another call for this bill, or here's another call for environmental conservation, or for whatever it was, right?
Yeah, I'm looking to join the army, bro. It sounds like you got a good operation going, bro.
Yeah, exactly, right? But basically, they're just constantly tallying this up, and they're not running polls in their districts because that's expensive. So they're relying on people that they meet to tell them things, and then they use that as rationale for the things that they do in office. Now, sometimes they've got their own opinions. You can't be helped, whatever. They are people. But to the extent that you want to move the needle, get access, tell them what you care about, get other people to tell them what you care about, get those tallies. They're counting everything in their head constantly. Just keep that tally running in your favor.
What is the relationship between the press and the media? I mean the media, the press, and this political thing. I find a lot of my groups, they seem to have very valid things, like some of the longest wrongfully incarcerated men in New York State history.
Yeah.
I'm working with right now. One of them also has a letter from the Conviction Integrity Unit saying that that the evidence he's given was faulty. He's still not exonerated. Right, this one that I told about the other family that's scattered all over New York City. How can the press doesn't seem to really care about their issues, even though we contact them? They seem to work with the candidates in terms of the releases and stuff. How can we leverage that to make that work for us?
So the press is okay. So I have great respect for the press. They do a really important job. They have a couple of different. You know what it is? It's exactly like politicians. You got to understand everybody's incentive. Everything is driven off of incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Newspapers have to make money, or websites, or whatever it is. The media, they have to make money. So they're reporting on things that get clicks. They're reporting on things that, drive eyeballs to advertisers. And this is simply the way of, well, I would say the world, but actually it's just capitalism, market capitalism. So, this is if you want the press to pay attention to your thing, make it salacious. Are people dying? Are people suffering? Is there sex involved? Is there corruption? Can
I invite you to something?
Invite me to something? Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do a salacious thing.
On Tuesday at Union Theological Seminary, which is Cornell West School, okay? Just I was the New York State coordinator for the People's Party, which he originally declared as a presidential candidate. I've
Yeah.
also been in the Green Party for over 20 years. I'm also involved with the people that are currently the reason why Cornel West had to flee from the Green Party as well. I
Okay.
actually have a coalition of people coming with me, including the lady who I told you about, like the one who's suffering from the scattered cross, and put her at the top of the flyer because of the urgency. Also, Mark Saffman, the deaf-blind advocate. We've actually helped get the New York State Disabilities Coordinator reinstated. Reverend Keith Gadsden, one of the longest wrongfully incarcerated men in New York State history, freed by Velmanetti Montgomery. Carmen Quinones, I think you know the name. Douglas House's time associate president. I know she's controversial, but she talked to me. We still got love. Joanna Acevedo, another county committee member.
Yeah.
You know Joanny? Okay. I'm supposed to reach out to William Smith. Another county, but he may be, and maybe Jeremiah. Yo, if you could come, oh my God, that would be amazing, bro.
When is it? Tuesday? What time?
Tuesday at 11 o'clock, right in front of the school.
Where is the school?
But like 120th Street and Broadway.
Like up in Harlem?
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be tough.
Columbia University.
Because I will say, I'm an activist, but like I'm a party leadership, so I don't get paid. So I like have a regular job.
Day job. That's okay.
I have a day job. Yeah. So it's hard for me to get to these, politicians are always being like, oh, come to my press rally, Hey,
are you a street musician? Are you a subby musician?
I'm not a street musician. I actually I used to have a video blog back in the day.
I saw that. You were in the park playing something. I saw that.
No, I wasn't playing. I was I would videotape and interview street performers. I was like big.
Okay, my bad. I thought you were performing. Okay. I saw a band and someone looked like you. I was like, oh shit, he's playing in the band. Okay.
No. I'm not that talented. The best I can do is karaoke.
Okay.
I'll say one more thing about the media though, which is that because of the media environment, budgets are short and people are overworked, just because of how the internet has treated traditional media. So the more that you can do to spoon feed reporters, the better off you'll be. Give them a good headline, give them all of the facts. They will say just basically write the story for them in the form of a press release, and then they will pick and choose what they want, and they'll do their own fact checking and add their flavor. But the extent that you can give them a sexy story where the impact to the community or the news value is obvious, that's enhances your opportunity to get your issue in print.
Okay.
Or on a podcast.
So that was a gold mine right there. I'm really thankful for that one. Oh my God. Yeah. Definitely inspiration right now. You haven't disappointed at all. Yeah, I definitely was looking forward to this one. All right, so now we're going to talk about another. There's a couple. All these topics dear to my heart, right? Yeah. As an Asian American, what do you think right now is this? Now, when you ran as public advocate before, right? There's certain cliques out here, right? Yeah, I saw you took a picture with Grace Meng. You don't seem to be in her clique though. Sandra Ung's with their clique.
Yeah.
Yi Chen's with their clique, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You seem to be kind of like on your own. I saw a couple of pictures with Chris Marte. I heard that she's with Grace Kim. They're their own unit. You got Working Families Party. Do you really? Are you clicked up, or are you kind of like your own? Who are you with in this whole Democrat landscape thing? And is there an Asian American land thing, or are you getting support, or what's up?
So I guess what I'd say is, if I have a clique, it is the reform movement. I've been involved in the reform movement being, sort of the anti-machine, anti-corrupt wing of the Democratic Party. That is like, I wouldn't even say the Democratic Party, just like
who's in that? Who's in that clique right there? Victoria Fiorella, maybe.
She's in it. I mean, so all of Downtown Independent Democrats is in it. They've been in it since before I was born. Downtown Independent Democrats. So I guess the reform movement started in. These are the original progressives. So the term progressive comes from the turn of the century. Well, not this century, but like 1870, right? You've got Tammany Hall and they're running New York City. This is the Democratic Party of New York.
Does the Downtown Independents have like an Asian contingent, or is it kind of like, are you like how does that like work out with that whole thing? Just as an Asian American,
we kind of do. The Downtown Independent Democrats used to have the district leader post for Chinatown, but because of some legal issues, they no longer, like, different people, like basically they got kicked off the ballot. It's kind of messed up. But regardless, I guess like the progressive movement is all over New York. Lower Manhattan is like definitely deep in the progressive movement. Western Queens is deep in the progressive movement. Like I'm very, very close with folks like Maria Kaufer, who's a state committee woman from actually she's from Central Queens, but she's Asian. Ed Kim, who's chair of the oh God, Forest Hills Asian American Association, right? And he's also chair now of the new New York State Party Asian Caucus. Actually, I got to shoot him an email.
Okay.
Yep. So the state party has been doing absolutely nothing for like a decade. But at the last meeting, they launched these caucuses. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to do my part to help make sure that at least the Asian American caucus is like active and organizing and helpful to people. Then
I'm looking for a home. Yeah. So I hope I can get involved with that. I think there's certain elements there that are uncomfortable with my participation. And I understand why.
Well, mine too.
Yeah. I have feeling. I have the feeling. Yeah. So
Yes.
let's click up, man. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I'm ready. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In Chinatown, like I've got lots of supporters.
Yeah. Marte District. Yeah, you a friend of Marte, right?
And also, do you know about like the association? Like I got a Yi Family Association in Chinatown.
Word? Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah, I think I didn't know that you was that Yi. Right there's how many Yis are there in Chinatown? Come on, man. You know what I mean? That's you? I had no idea, bro.
I didn't actually know until the public advocates race, but then I was introduced to the Yi Family Association, and yeah, there's like a clubhouse and everything. And like on Sundays, every couple of Sundays, I'll go by. And
I'm down, bro. Like, hey, I want to check it out, man. I'm learning some quality from you, man. I want to hang out with you. I'm telling you, man.
Well, there's
making some big moves, bro.
There's like a family association for almost every Chinese like last.
I'm not Chinese. I'm Korean.
You're
just for the last name. Oh, snap. Okay,
I
didn't know that.
Name, yes.
Interesting. I did not know that. Oh, I'm learning things now.
Right.
Okay.
So like Grace Lee. So yeah, I think you mentioned Grace Lee, who's assemblywoman for.
Yeah, I hung out with Chinese people. I never heard of this. Yes. Oh, we all hang out because we only have the same last name. So there's like this clubhouse. No, I never heard of this in my life. I hung out with Chinese people. Like a good amount. Yeah. Okay.
That's how it is. So like Grace Lee's Korean, but her husband is Chinese.
Okay.
And so it's interesting because her husband's his name is Kim Lee. His first name was Kim. So she through him got into the Lee Association in Chinatown.
Okay.
So there's all of these associations. Okay. So yeah, I'm in the Yi Association. It's good.
All right, so hopefully I'll be a part of trying to create a new future for Asian Americans. They have the curriculum going down now. I have my own criticism of that. I'm gonna send that to you in an email, maybe.
Yes.
I definitely would like to. I have my own criticism of that, pretty heavy. Yeah. Anyways, so now look, here's another question. Since you're a data guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What now? Honestly, right? Yeah. A lot of people say ranked choice voting. I'm very disappointed by ranked choice voting. Okay. What do you think about ranked choice voting? We've already gone through 2 cycles, right? Yeah, more than 2 cycles of ranked choice voting. We should have data. I'm not saying ranked choice voting is all bad, right? I think it has some cool elements of it. Okay. What's your opinion on this ranked choice voting?
Yeah. So first, just as background for folks who don't know, like before I was like county committee and party politics guy, I was civic data guy. And I was digital director and data for Barack Obama in New York State. And then
very valuable. I'm so excited to learn about these numbers. Yeah, the numbers.
Then I went and I did digital and data for New York State Senate, where we did a bunch of open data stuff and transparency work and what have you, and like all that good stuff. And we made the state government transparent for a few years and like won a bunch of awards. And then the Republicans retook the state Senate. Anyway, besides that, I was a data guy originally. Now, insofar as ranked choice, I'm a huge proponent of ranked choice voting. It's just so much better than first past the post, in my opinion. I know that there are people who feel otherwise, but ultimately, what ranked choice voting allows you to do is vote. It allows you to vote and send a message for who you like without losing your capacity to influence the final outcome of the election. So I don't know exactly what it is that you would have preferred to see in the ranked choice ballots. But for example, when we had the mayoral race, that was under ranked choice. There were legitimately 5 candidates who were in the running there, and it all shook out, and ultimately Adams ended up with the most votes. But it allowed people to cast their votes for people that they really wanted to see in office, say Maya Wiley, but then have a second vote for, say, Catherine Garcia, because they wanted to vote against Eric Adams or something like this. And it gives voters options. And I think that is really important, because most people feel that there's no point in voting, or their vote won't be meaningful. And the ranked choice system allows us to add meaning to people's votes.
I guess, yeah. Some of the issues that I have are, I feel like the candidates were less willing to take any stand on an issue because they wanted to appeal to their possible opponent's crowd. So they all went, like, I felt it was a very centralizing force. And when you try to talk to the candidate about something, they would give you like nothing. And they were more, inspired to give nothing answers and to be, I really want to be able to differentiate the candidates, not have them all be a kind of homogenous mass. You know what I mean?
That makes sense. What I will say about that is, one, I agree that ranked choice voting tends to have a homogenizing effect on candidates. And this is actually shown in research.
Like, is that good?
Arguably, yes. Because of 2 things. It does 2 things. It prevents divisive candidates from winning on messages of division. So, like, you can imagine like a Donald Trump who's very, very divisive. He's running in a field of many, many candidates, and he has a core group of people that are a minority of the overall electorate. But because he can get passed on a first past the post system, he keeps winning. And this is kind of what happened in the Republican primary. If you allowed people to transfer their votes after the first round of ballots, so, all the people who had voted for, who was like Marco Rubio, whoever was like his big opponent in 2016 or whatever it was, like those votes could have flown to other candidates. But because you have this first past the post system and you can win with 30% of the vote, then people with very divisive messages can come out ahead, while everybody else fractures, all of the regular voters. You get, all your racists gathering together and winning consistently. The other thing that it does is it encourages politicians to, again, be more homogenous. But what does that mean? It means appeal to the most people possible. It generally means coming up, adhering to the most consistent or acceptable policy proposals that will probably move politics in a slightly progressive direction. But you'll never get something that's like sort of like over the top great, but you'll also never get something that's over the top terrible. And that is why a homogenizing effect is valuable.
That's a fair argument. Okay. We're not going to agree all the time, right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? But that's a fair argument. I like the way that you think. Now, I want to give a big shout out to my favorite, activists out of all the 95 activists that I have more activists that I've met, right? Yeah. Activist of the Year, Theo Chino, right? Yeah. I know he's watching. Big shout out to Theo, right? Yeah. Now, we all know that Theo, right? I don't know if you remember at the last meeting, we were at the county committee, but there's a guy come out with a movie about it. There was a guy filming for his film school, right? That movie's coming out, right? I was like, 0 votes, no, right? Yeah.
I remember.
How can we help Theo, man? I love this guy, man. He's trying to do the good work out here. What would you recommend for my boy Theo out here? Sweating his balls off, right? Yeah, getting disrespect. I got love for the guy. He's a lovable guy. I don't know how you feel about him, right? How can we help this guy?
I like
man?
Theo. I mean,
we need to do better for this guy, man. For real.
You and I have been we've been talking for years and years now. I like him. He's got good passion. He's got a good heart.
So what's this 0 shit, bro? Oh my God, man! What can we do about this, man? How can we help this guy?
Well, actually, here's a really interesting. This is like this is almost to your point. Like ranked choice voting, for example, would really help Theo. The reason that nobody voted for Theo, nobody, right? Yeah. Okay. The reason nobody voted for Theo is because
Well, there was like 5 or 6 votes or something, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was a very
in that
small
first round. Like as soon as I heard the first 0, because like there was different districts,
Right.
I freaked out. I was like, nah, no.
So
Anyways,
ultimately, you have a very contentious election. So this is for those who don't know, like this was an election for the leadership of the Manhattan Democratic Party. So internal party politics, voted on by the county committee. Again, county committee, very important. These internal elections, very important. So it was a very contested, contentious election. There was the incumbent, Domenico Minerva, who is the incumbent candidate. He's currently chair of the Manhattan Democratic Party, and he was for the last.
you got a good relation with this
years.
guy? You know this guy?
I mean, Nico's very nice. We get along pretty well.
I don't know him yet. Yeah, I just really don't.
Politically, we're not exactly aligned, but he's a nice guy. And like we have legitimate, good conversation. Like we can talk about what we agree on, right?
Cool.
And then you had this other candidate, Harvey Epstein, who is more of a reformer, right? He's from Lower Manhattan, and that election, that vote ended up coming down to that election came down to 8 votes, and people understood that this was going to be a very, very close race because Nico is the incumbent. He's also backed by Keith Wright, who's been county leader, this other really important position, and who was also an assemblyman. And they've been at this for a decade now. And Harvey Epstein is an assembly member, but he's sort of fresh face to the county politics situation. I mean, he's been on the county committee forever, but to run for leadership, and he's offering to bring in some change. So people knew this was going to be tight, and they didn't want to risk voting for an unknown third candidate because the fight was really between somebody who's backed by.
How do they not know Theo? He's got a megaphone blowing the stuff up. What do you mean he's not known?
Well, known is more like, he's not an elect. This is politics. Things revolve around, do you have a base and do you have, political influence in other areas? And you're going up against an assembly member, a sitting assembly member, and somebody who used to be an assembly member and has been in power for 10 years. So, they don't want to take any chances. So they're all voting for one of these two people because, again, it came down to 8 votes. Like, do you want to be the one vote that
so you think that's all it is? It's not like anything like, he's not perceived in a certain way, or there's no like machine stuff. Like what should he really do? Like, like just build his base with the people and just talk to them and
for starters, yes, to go out and get more people up to the county committee who he's spoken to personally. This is the Rep My Block thing, right? He's been at this for a while, but getting that many people is quite difficult. You need at least a couple of hundred to really influence a leadership fight in the county party. But with a couple of hundred, if he really committed himself to organizing and getting those people, it's not impossible. This is
I'm down to be one. I'm down to be in the 100. Yeah, I'm down to be one.
Okay. So there you go. The next thing I would say is ranked choice voting, again, would really help. I think more people would have voted. Like I would have voted for Theo if I knew that my vote would then transfer to Harvey after the fact if Theo did not get a majority.
Oh, really? Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I'm honored. Yeah. Hey, Theo, you heard that right there. Right? I think you're watching, right? Yeah. How does it feel, Theo? It feels good, doesn't it? Yeah.
I like
feel a little better about yourself. You do a lot of good work, man.
Yeah.
You deserve better. Yeah,
but go ahead. Ultimately, right? Like, but the ultimate thing is like, I do think that people do develop reputations in politics. I think that there are definitely folks who don't take kindly to like Theo's bombastic nature, and then I would just say, and I've told Theo this before to his face, just proofread your shit more.
I get it. We're on the edge out here. I mean, I get you though. Yeah, I've got those typos too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Like people, like you can send people letters, but it's got to be, you got to send them a good letter.
It's got to be accurate. Yeah. I've made those mistakes too. I can't hate, but I know what you're talking about.
That's
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
People are like, are you joking? I'm like, no.
Let's talk about another group that actually the remember that I told you in October I'd send a message out saying to contact you for help.
Yeah.
I'm still now the thing is that about Fulton houses. Check this out. I was no activist during the Obama era. It's funny that you write, And
Yeah.
the thing is that during the Rad Pack, let me tell you, I don't know if you were around for this.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Back then, remember when Rad Pack passed? You know what Rad Pack? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay. So back during the Obama era, right? I was in student government myself.
Okay.
And they said that we can no longer afford to pay for public housing because, the rent is low.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something I'm happy about. Okay, like we're, it's Obama's new transformation. Like, cool. Okay, we're gonna try to work it out. So you hear this happen. What's the first? They say we're gonna have to sell the property. So what's your first response as an activist?
Oh, so I do know Rad. So this came up during the public advocates race where they were selling off parcels of land in NYCHA housing for developers so that they could raise money for the I guess repairs and such. But your specific question is about what's my thoughts on what particular thing?
Okay, so the thing is that because I was back there during the era when they passed the Rad Pact, right? Yeah, and I'll tell you what made people like me get on board for it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not saying that like I'm necessarily for it or against it. Right. Once again, it's the implementation which is the key.
Yeah.
Right? People get behind these slogans and then it gets weaponized against us. But okay, just want to explain what Rad Pact is, how it works, and what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
The thing is that they're ending public housing in the United States as we know it. Remember, they said we don't have the money to pay for the repairs.
Yeah.
Because the rent is low, so we're going to end public housing as we know it. So why was there no real outcry? Why did even people like myself even say, you know what, maybe I could even get behind this? Sounds weird, right? What would you think, right? You'd be like, oh, what's going to happen to people living there? That's the obvious question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My first question is, if you're going to end public housing as we know it, what will it become? What's your plan?
It becomes okay. So it became Section 8, which actually I'm not really too thrilled about, right? But that's one avenue that's going down. Now there's multiple avenues that could go down, but right now there's a strong urge to push it towards Section 8. It doesn't have to go to Section 8 necessarily, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much already geared that way. It's already rolled out in many states. New York is one of the holdouts, right? That still has public housing, right, to shelter and other types of a variety of programs. City FEPs. You know about city FEPs?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So the thing is that what happened was they said the people that are living in public housing, they're going to get to own the property.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Remember during the Obama era, there was also like the mortgage lending crisis. So that also right. This is a similar program designed in a similar way. The people who are living in those homes, right. Yeah. They could borrow on the value of the property of their home to pay for the repairs. Right. Yeah. And these apartments that they're buying, right. I have testimony. One lady who said that she bought her apartment in Queensbridge for I think $30,000, some ridiculously low amount. Those apartments are worth over $1 million at private value. You know what I mean? So that's why they're trying to buy them. So, and the idea was that by empowering this new group of this community that's been discriminated against, poor people, right? Actual poor people have a chance to now become owners in the community. Not only that, but we're going to create new housing stock and better housing stock, right? With up to date and with new ability to help people with disabilities and stuff like that, right? Now that the day has come, right? Yeah, 20, 30 years later, whatever it is, right? Yeah. All of a sudden, they're just not telling the residents that they have the possibility to own it. They're just saying, oh, you know what? I'm sorry, right? Yeah, we just don't have any plan for you. And they can how can they sell the public buildings, right? The people that are living there, aren't they the public? You know what I mean? But no one's telling them that, because all the marketing, all the money is pointed, right, not to tell these people what's actually their right to have, right? Yeah. But to mask the truth from them and to juggle them into some bullshit, and this is a leftover from the Obama era. And I'm trying to fix this right now.
What I heard during the public advocates campaign when we were talking about RAD was, as you said, they don't have any money for the public housing. What it looked like was happening was they were taking parts of basically the NYCHA land and then selling that off to developers. So there's all these courtyards. If you look at a NYCHA complex, right, they would basically sell off land in the NYCHA complex to developers, and then those would be market rate. And then that money would go into basically the NYCHA fund. But there's a lot of problems, but one of the big problems was the NYCHA governance was so bad. This was at the same time that all
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The worst landlord for multiple years in a row. I know what you're talking about. You're absolutely
this was the time that all those reports about the lead paint and stuff were coming out. And so the NYCHA community was like, you're selling off our park. So basically, they have all these parks, like this green space in between the buildings for their kids, and like that's nice, right? If it were maintained, it'd be nice. I mean, it is actually kind of nice. I think some of these places have some good land. Like you're selling off this land, and you're not going to do anything. It's just endlessly corrupt. What I was saying at the time was, kind of like as you were saying, the devil's in the details. What matters is the implementation. And if each NYCHA complex has its own governing board, it's run like a co-op. So you have elected leaders.
Well, we could do a whole show on that, but the really reason why I'm asking right now is because you are in Chelsea.
East Village. Well, I represent.
Okay.
I represent Assembly District 66, which is not really Chelsea, but it's like West Village up to 14th Street, so getting on the border there. But it's 14th Street down, West Side included. But
so Fulton houses, as you know, right? They're actually one of the most watched because of the high value of that property right there, right? It's for me, it's actually a seminal point in the fight for public housing here in New York City.
Yeah.
You know that they're about to be evicted. And I've tried to mobilize them to actually, right? Nadler actually is coming out in support of the this destruction. I don't know how you feel about it, if you have a position on it, but either just like as a civics lesson for the people who are in public housing, right? I'm putting this, I'm gonna clip this. I even had Supreme from Wu-Tang shout him out, right? Yeah, I'm gonna I'd love to introduce you sometime, but we're gonna take the what would you recommend for these people in public housing, right, to actually get to stop themselves from being evicted and losing their homes?
So this is tough because NYCHA is, it's a state program. Well, it's federally funded, but it's really run by the states. You need. So I guess there's a couple of avenues. The first and most obvious one, I actually don't know the details of how the fight's been going so far. But like the first one is like an injunction. You go through the courts and you say this is illegal, and you can tie this up for years.
Stop a second, yeah.
Right.
Oh my God, I'm telling you guys every fucking day, the lawsuits, God damn it, get the money together. I tell you every fucking day, okay? I swear, thank you so much, okay?
Yeah.
He had no idea. I'm telling you right now, fuck all the bullshit meetings, fuck all that, get the lawsuits going right the fuck now, all right? It's already too late. Get the fucking shit started now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the first, that's the first and most straightforward step. You file for an injunction, and then you just delay. You could have this thing on the docket just like for years.
Yeah.
Being like, all right, whatever. And so that racks up costs for the city. It does kind of rack up costs for the community, but maybe you've got yourself a good pro bono lawyer. Because honestly, once you file the papers the first time, the rest of the motions are pretty perfunctory. So you don't need a high-powered lawyer for all of this stuff. You just got to get it together for one thing, submit it, and then keep pushing it. So that's the first thing that's going to buy you some time. Hell, if you've got a good case, maybe even win in court and then it's over. That's harder, but whatever. And that's more expensive. But you could delay things that way. Yeah. The next is, for NYCHA, I imagine they've already gone to all the elected officials, right? But the next thing to do is like break out of your community. The NYCHA housing is,
I tell them, right, they're right by freaking Chelsea Market. They're right by the Whole Foods right there. That's why they're the ones that can win. I know Nordstrom Houses is crying. I know Brooklyn Houses is crying. I'm mad at you. You're right. You're being neglected. I ain't mad at you. You know what I mean? But I'm telling you right now, because Chelsea has a proximity to all this wealth and people and progressives and money, right? Yeah, y'all have a chance. And if this fight loses, I'm telling you right now, a whole lot of activists that are trying to support public housing right now are gonna fall. You need to mount up for this one. It's losing right now. Just so you know, in the last election, Eric Botcher, who's supporting the redevelopment, actually won by the highest margin out of every single as in terms of mobilizing this community has not been successful. And I have to tell Eric Botcher, right, if you want to win, sorry, buddy, you made the right choice. I mean, what can I say? It's disgusting. Yeah. Without mobilization, you cannot expect anything. You must start the lawsuits. You already lost the electoral war. You're going to have to try.
Well, the electoral war. So the city council is required for zoning. So council is really important for that. But, for governance of NYCHA, you got to, get to this. You can go to the state. So we got state elections coming up in 2024. Get to your assembly member, get to your state senator, run candidates against them. Although if they hear me say that, they'll be pissed. But hey, man, it's democracy. Sorry, whatever. Like if you're not serving these people, like they've got a perfect, they've got the total right to like try and find somebody who will. But as you were just saying, like this is a community surrounded by wealth. Don't be insular. Get involved in the democratic clubs around you. Get involved in the other civic organizations around you. Be part of, now it's easier said than done. And certainly, these people are, I'm not saying that like it's unfortunate that it is incumbent upon the folks who are disadvantaged to do this labor, because really it should be the progressives who ostensibly care about this stuff to go into these communities and be like, try to be allies. But that is just not how the world works. So you have to go out and find your allies. But if you can make common cause with, the wealthy folks of Chelsea and the West Village, you'll have a powerful constituency to advocate for you. And let me tell you, our assembly members, our state senators, our federal senators, they're coming to DID and Village Independent Democrats and, Chelsea Democratic, Hell's Kitchen Democratic Club and Chelsea Reform Democratic Club. These are elected officials who recognize that there are votes and money in these communities. And if you can be a part of them, then you will have access to this additional level of representation, additional level of access. So I think I agree with you that, make allies, get allies from that community. That's very powerful.
Okay, I actually one thing I just want to tell you is that I actually recently posted into that same Facebook group the meeting for the Chelsea. They had the elections just came up. I also was pumping, like going to their meetings before. But one thing that I'm a little bit worried about is I think that Chelsea Independent Democrats are kind of like more like not for the rezoning, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe these people would be more at home with the downtown Independent Democrats. Can they go and participate with you guys? I think you guys are close, right?
Well, the DID is all the way downtown, like below. These are all, districts are geographically based.
Okay.
So DID is actually really, it's the lower half of 66. So
yeah, then they're better off just participating. Where is that? They're on 20th Street. Where are they? They're 23rd something street. Okay, so yeah, they're better off with Chelsea Democrats than just taking over.
Yeah, Chelsea Reform Democratic, Hell's Kitchen Democrats, and maybe even Village Independent Democrats. Because the thing is, the assembly districts. So really, it's Tony Simone's assembly district and Brad Hoylman's state senate district. So you want those clubs. Village Independent Democrats, though, is valuable because they're very close with Eric Botcher. So that's the other thing, to do a power map and map out the relationships. So who controls NYCHA and who has influence over this decision? Who controls, the zoning and the developers?
I'd love to have a strategy session. Actually, like I said, I have some tenant association presidents that I got coming to this event on Tuesday with the protest of Cornell West.
Yeah.
I'd love to actually email my list of people that are associated with this and bring you to a meeting. And it's a good time for you to increase your value before a presidential election.
Right.
And as an Asian American brother, man, I think we're making fucking history, bro. And let's make our mark, man, for this generation.
Definitely. I'm happy to let me know when's a good time to do that. Happy to participate. But just for the folks who might see this, to just map out who's got control of what thing, and then the relationships that are important. So who is Eric Botcher close to? He's close to VID, right? He goes to all those meetings, right? Who is Brad Hoylman close to, right? All these folks and like all these clubs, and these clubs are open to the public, or they're open to registered Democrats. Register as a Democrat. Vote in primaries, for God's sake. Vote in primaries. That's also super important. You can't stop anything if you don't vote in a primary in New York City.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. I could ask about other things like wrongful convictions, but I think that's a good place to kind of take a break right there. I do plan on doing more work with you. I'm really happy that we started having this conversation. So
let me just throw my my information in the chat here. So I'll join.
Yeah.
That
Oh
way.
yeah. We'll just put it as a comment, right? Just put it a comment to the video. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll grab it out the chat and then I'll put it into the. Oh, Dinick Martinez is in the chat. What's up?
All right, I'll throw it in the chat here.
I think Trump is gonna win. I have to tell you that I'm of the same. I think Trump has a really good shot here. What do you think? I mean, maybe you don't want it to happen, but I think it's just.
Trump does have a very good shot. I wish
Yeah.
that people took that more seriously because I'm terrified.
I wasn't here when Trump was president, so I missed out on that whole.
Yeah.
I mean, not really, because I don't know what it was like. So for me, like, people say it's so bad, like I really didn't get to see that. So I wasn't really. I saw he changed the drapes to yellow. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But I didn't experience his whole thing.
I can tell you that it was not good. It was bad.
Well, I have to see it, but okay. So in the chat, I don't see it yet. Yeah, you put your information there.
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, it's all good. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go check the chat here. Okay, by the way, BLM Chinatown just got out of apparently he had in a fight with Talia Jane at Drag King Story Hour. Wish you guys would stop fighting. Whatever, you guys gonna do what you're gonna do. Out of the seat.
Oh, I should have put some. I guess the spaces didn't come out. All right, I just sent you the text for it, but it's like it's not pretty. You're gonna have to put some commas or something.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so I'm just are these links and stuff? Okay, I'm gonna drop these things into the comment of the thing. All right, cool, man. Yo, this is one of my this is, I think, one of the best right here. I appreciate it so much.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. I know that we were trying to get this going for a little bit, but I'm glad we were able to make it happen. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope it's been helpful. People enjoyed it. I don't know, that the information is good, useful.
All right, cool, man. I'll be back in contact. Thanks so much.
I'll talk to you again soon.
One love, peace, brother.
Bye.